All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be le'ilu nishmas our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka bas Gavril Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and b'schus the refuah shalema bekarov Meshalom ben Sarachel, Miriam bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today, we are on page 141 in the Ora Vigdor, for those who are following along. And today, we are continuing this idea that we're talking about cause and effect. And this cause and effect system that we started talking about, which is the fifth preface of Bitachon. And we started talking about what is cause and effect, how it works, why do we have cause and effect in this world. And we're going to continue a little bit today. And Rav Av says over here that people might get the impression that we need every single intermediary action involved in a cause to have an effect. So yesterday we spoke about what is cause and effect. Cause and effect is that we have an outcome that we're looking for. But in order to get that outcome, and the example that Rav Av gave was if you want to take water out of a well, right? You need to lower a bucket of water. Today's days you use a pump. But regardless, the action that the result you're trying to do is get that water, but there are different steps needed and required in order to get the water out of the ground, right? And so it requires, let's say in today's modern times, it requires digging a hole, putting a pipe, putting in a pump, powering it up to putting it into electric panel, and then turning it on and getting that water up, right? So there's a lot of different things. Now, every single one of those steps is what we call the chain of the cause and effect system. Those are all the causes in this chain, which the effect is that you get the water. And so we started talking about yesterday that Hashem created this world to run on the cause and effect system. And that only when he created the world initially was that done because he said so, because there was nothing that could, there was no causes yet in order to create effects. So Hashem first created the world, the first humans and animals were created from the ground, and then from there on it was all, everything cause and effect system. Now, we're going further over here to say over here that part of these things, he says, that people might get the impression that we need every single one of these intermediary agents, these intermediary steps in the chain, because every one of them is doing something that's necessary. But actually, it all works because of the man who planned them, right? That's why it works. So we can always change things up. We just planned it that way. Similarly, when Hashem does things, we see the functioning of all the intermediary actions, but we shouldn't get into the error of thinking that these actions are dependent and self-controlled. So he says over here, no, it's only because Hashem is behind them that they are functioning. Don't think for 1 second that the reason we have an outcome, even though it's decreed by Hashem, is because you have certain causes, certain things in the chain of cause and effect. Hashem controls every single one of those little intermediary pieces. So in the example of the well with the water, he controls the digging, he controls the electric, the pipe, the pump, the water to come out. Everything is controlled by him, not just the outcome. So I want you to understand that. Now, he says, of course, the comparison, a human being to God is difficult to, and it's not really right in this example, because it's not a true comparison, because if one of the intermediate agents in the example breaks down, it's not because the man wanted it to break down, because we said it's the man who set it up. Hashem, when he does something and he wants something to break down, he wants that thing to break down. There's a reason Hashem is causing anguish and pain for you at that moment, in that even there might be a little task, it might be something fell on the floor and broke, and it might be a small little, insignificant thing that might bother you for a moment, and then you go wipe it up. But that is part of it, and it's very deliberate. It's very deliberate by Hashem, and it has a reason for it, even though it might be something very, very small. So it is with all other actions that are brought into being in this world. They cannot be brought about by people or other forces, only by Hashem's decree. And by his preparation of all the intermediary edges needed to bring about the final results. What he's saying over here is, even though a human being goes ahead and wants an outcome, creates a vessel, creates something, and there's all those different pieces that he needs in order to get it done, And he's going to bring over here an example of building a house. When you build a house, even though it seems to you every detail is planned by the architect, and every piece of hardware is already, drawn up and put onto a purchase order to get it done, at the end of the day, it's all Hashem creating those intermediary pieces. So even though you think you created it, it's still Hashem running that and functioning it. And Hashem just wants you to think, because that's the way He runs the world. He wants to run the world in those system called cause and effect. You do things, something comes out of it. You put more effort, you put different kind of effort, you add different pieces to it, and this is how things work. And that's what cause and effect is. And he goes further to say, Kamosha Kasef, as it's written in Shmuel, Niskunu Alilos, men's deeds are accounted by Him, meaning Hashem at the end of the day is the one who controls it, even though it's cause and effect. And that's how the world runs it. But it's because Hashem set up the system, and He set up the system in a way that He wants it to work. And that's how it's going to work at the end of the day. Now, before we conclude today, there's a nice little piece on the Parsha I want to talk about, Parsha Shoftim. And in this week's Parsha, talks about trusting Hashem when going to battle. Over there, the Yidden were going out to war. And Hashem says to them like this, when you go out to battle against your enemy, and He says these words precisely, and you see a horse and a chariot, think about that for a moment, it's singular, the words are singular, horse and a chariot, a people more numerous than you shall not fear them, for a God, your God, is with you, who brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim. It's interesting. The word for when Hashem says, if you go into war and you see a horse and chariot, singular, one horse, one chariot, why does that make sense? You go into war. Why doesn't the pasuk say, if you see horses and chariots and soldiers, why does it talk about singular? He says over here, Hashem is describing a situation where the Yidden are outnumbered. The situation looks very, very intimidating. So why would the Torah then use the word sus, which means horse, not susim, not plural? So here's the lesson, and Rashi says this. Rashi says that the Torah purposely keeps the word for horse singular because Hashem is telling us that even when there are hundreds of thousands of horses and chariots and soldiers, to Hashem, it's considered as one. Understand the importance of this. When you look at a problem, the problem has a size. There's a small problem, there's a big problem. There are small challenges and there are large challenges. And every one of us in our lives have challenges. And some of them are easier to overcome than others, and some of them are much bigger. We look at them as humongous mountains. And what Hashem is telling you over here, to trust in Him, and why He's saying this singular version of a horse and a chariot is because to Hashem, the problems aren't in size matter. It's either it's there or it's not there. Hashem doesn't have a capability scale. It says, I can handle 100,000 soldiers, but 1,000,000 soldiers is too difficult. Hashem is showing you over here if it's one soldier or if it's 1,000,000 soldiers, if it's one horse, one chariot, or if 1,000,000 horses and 1,000,000 chariots. It doesn't matter to Hashem. The problem isn't bigger, harder, or more difficult. To Hashem, it's just an issue. And Hashem can change that outcome. And in Parsha Shalach, another Parsha, Hashem tells us why He took us out of Mitzrayim. He says, Lios lechem lelokim, to be a God for us, for the Yidden. He says when a child, God forbid, is not well, and he's in a situation that is very, very bad, right? By the parent removing the child from the pain and saving them from further anguish, from further pain, it creates a special bond between the parent and the child. And over here, you see that Hashem says, God is our Father. He is. Hashem is our Father. He put us into Mitzrayim and He took us out. Why? Why did He do that? He says, so the Yidden can, as a whole, as a Klal Yisrael, and individually, can know and feel that Hashem whisked us away and that we can take solace and feel the love and connection to Hashem. And it wasn't just so we could be free from our problems, but it's so that we can receive something beautiful from Hashem, so that we can receive the Torah. And we too want to be free from our problems. But for a purpose of living a beautiful, a productive and fulfilling life, Hashem wants that for us as well. And for Hashem, giving someone $20 or giving someone $100 million, there is no difference. It's not a matter of it's more difficult or it's not. It's singular. It's always singular. It's whether I want to give you or I do not want to give you. And just like Hashem saved the Yidden from Mitzrayim, Hashem will save us also now because He loves us. And He wants to be what He said, Lios lechem lelokim, to be a God to us. And so we have to understand that. And we have to take that to heart. That when we need something from Hashem, we can't tell Hashem, look Hashem, how big is my problem? I need this big, huge problem fixed. No. What we tell the problem is, look at my God. Look at Hashem, how big He is. Because you're nothing. A $20 problem and a $10 million problem are all the same for Hashem. It's singular. It's just a problem. It's $1. It's not millions of dollars. It's, as the pasuk says, it's one horse, one chariot. And that's why Hashem was so careful to make sure that we understand that. Because what Hashem could do, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant how big the issue is. It's not a matter of whether He can handle that or not. Hashem can handle anything. He can change anything whenever He wants. And that's the significance of this pasuk. And that's the lesson that we learn from this week's parsha. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today. Have a wonderful, a beautiful Shabbos, and I love you all.